Hello, parents and guardians, and welcome back to another Discipleship Debrief. So this past Sunday, our youth group was in Mark chapter 10. We started in verse 32 and we went all the way till the end of the chapter, which is verse 52. And because we were covering so much, we needed the guidance of kind of the section headings. So we broke it up into individual stories that were happening with this general theme of grace and faith saving us. And so first we looked at Jesus' walk towards Jerusalem. Jesus starts this walk towards Jerusalem with his disciples in tow, and he's prophesying to them about what is going to happen to him as he arrives in Jerusalem. He says he'll be mocked, he'll be scourged, he'll be spat on, he'll be killed, and he'll be raised again. And all of these things come true in Mark chapters 14 to 16 with incredible detail. And we really honed in on the fact that in verse 32, there's this phrase that the people who are with Jesus, walking with him, they are amazed and they are afraid. They're amazed at Christ and they're afraid of what's going on. And we honed in on that amazement, right? Why are they so amazed at Christ? And really, I talked about the perseverance of Christ. This incredible image of our Savior, our all-knowing Savior, knowing what's going to happen to him, knowing that he is walking into the worst pain and punishment and death imaginable. And he's doing it anyway. He's continuing on this road. Really, Jesus models for us here that there is no sacrifice too great when it comes to glorifying God. He sacrificed himself for the glory of God and to redeem his people. And so we see this perseverance, this unimaginable perseverance. I asked the students, right, to try and imagine the anxiety of knowing that you are walking on a path that's going to lead to this unimaginable death and doing it anyway because you want to glorify God. And so I encourage the students that if they're ever feeling faint-hearted or weary or tired in their faith, in their walk, right? Maybe resisting temptation, maybe standing out so much from among their friends, stuff like that. It does make us tired. Look to Christ. Look to his example and the perseverance that he showed, that no sacrifice was too great because he was glorifying God. And so after that, we looked at this next section, which was James and John making this really misguided request of Christ. And they come to him and they make a very vague request to just say, do for us whatever we ask. And I couldn't help but be reminded of when the disciples are arguing on the road about who's the greatest amongst them. And Jesus asks them what they're arguing about, and they simply say nothing, right? There's this vagueness to it. There's this redirection about it. And so Jesus pushes them to reveal what they are actually asking. And they ask that they'll be seated at his right hand and his left hand in glory. And there's so much wrong with their request, including the fact that it's simply a request for status. And Jesus points out that it is a request that even he cannot grant, because the Father has already sovereignly ordained who will be at his right and his left, and he does not want to disobey in that way. And so Jesus kind of corrects them, and he reminds them that there is not this hierarchy amongst Christians. We don't need to vie for position or vie for respect or anything like that. He reminds them that by showing them that he himself came to be a servant, not to be served. He came and he modeled that, and again, going back to the previous verses, he's reminding them that that's what he's on his way to do. And so I used this to remind the students that there is not a hierarchy amongst us. We're all saved by grace, by the gracious act of God. And so we don't have this vying for position. We don't need that. We don't push each other down so that we could get pushed up. We don't have this idea of trying to say that they're less saved than we are, that we are more saved than they are. We don't do that. And we see that the apostles do learn this, because if you go to Acts 15, Peter makes this incredible statement about the new Gentile believers, and he says that the apostles will be saved by the same manner that the Gentiles were saved. He lowers the apostles, he heightens the Gentiles, all in the name of grace. And so they do learn the lesson. And it's incredible. But we see, and we need to be reminded of this daily as believers, that we really need to remember that we are here to serve, not to be served. We are in the church to do things for the church, not to have the church do things for us. We're with our brothers and sisters so that we can lift them up, not just so that they can lift us up. And so we need that reminder. And Jesus firmly reminds his disciples of it here. And then to close, we saw this incredible story of blind Bartimaeus. And blind Bartimaeus is sitting on the roadside begging outside of Jericho. And Jesus walks through Jericho to the outside, and blind Bartimaeus hears that it is him. He calls out and he says, "Son of David, have mercy on me." And we saw that just that phrase, "Son of David, have mercy on me," shows that blind Bartimaeus already understands who Christ is. There's some movement in his heart, some working in his heart, where blind Bartimaeus has already fully accepted that Jesus is the Son of God, the Messiah. He's calling him Son of David. That's a messianic title. He's requesting mercy from him. That's an attribute of God, right? And so we see this, and we see this beautiful interaction between blind Bartimaeus and Christ that ends with the phrase, "Your faith has made you well." Jesus says to blind Bartimaeus, "Your faith has made you well." And so we see that the physical miracle that's happening to blind Bartimaeus' eyes is reflecting the inward miracle that's already happened, where his faith has made him well, and he sees his Savior physically, and he sees his Savior spiritually. And it's incredible. And it's a good reminder of what we had already seen, that Christ is our perseverant Savior who saves us by grace through faith, and there's not a hierarchy amongst that. We are just as saved in our moment of faith as blind Bartimaeus was in his moment of faith. And so it's really an incredible reminder. And for this, to kind of follow up on it, for one, I would reread all of Mark chapter 10. We had a big break in between our sections of Mark chapter 10. So please take the time, go back through that with your student. And then I would ask them the simple question of, do you think that you have been vying for position? Do you think that your desire for status has kind of clouded your faith? Because really that is the main takeaway from this, is that we're all saved in the same manner. We're all saved by the same person. We're all saved at the same level. So do we let our human ambition diminish that? Do we let our human ambition take away from that? Do we let our human ambition push our brothers and sisters down, push them away? Or are we just accepting that we've been saved by grace, through faith, by the work of Christ? And we live in service because of that. So encourage your student to think about that, to make sure that they're not pushing other believers away just so that they can feel better about themselves, and remind them that they're here to serve, not to be served, because we were served by Christ through his death and resurrection. That is all I have for you this week. If you have any questions or comments or anything, please feel free to reach out. Otherwise, see you next time.